And we are back. Joining me now is John LaRocca. He's president of LaRocca Inspection Associates, which performs more home inspections than any other company in California. He's going to tell you what to look for when buying a home and what you need to do when selling to make sure there aren't any problems later on that come back and haunt you. Great to have you here today, John.
Thanks. Good to be here. Appreciate it.
So it's not a good idea to hide things when you're selling, is that right?
Not a good idea. Actually, what happens is in California, you're required to do a disclosure as a seller so that you disclose the things that you know that are wrong with the property. If you don't do that, well, then you're in violation of the California law.
But it happens?
It happens.
And as a result, you say so that sometimes that a home will be in escrow, but it'll fall out of escrow because problems...
Well, what happens is people get into escrow and then the buyer will come along with a home inspector. The home inspector will find some things that are wrong with the property. They'll try to negotiate that situation to bring the price down again,
right,
to get concessions in some way, either money off the deal or money left to the escrow to fix it or whatever. And if they don't agree or somehow things just don't seem to work out, it falls out of escrow and the seller has to put his property back onto the market.
And you said that's a problem these days because with the market down so much anyway.
Well, you can imagine what happens in this market. There are a lot more sellers than there are buyers. So when you get into escrow with somebody, you now have taken your house effectively off the market and you're turning away new buyers that might come along, those valuable buyers that there aren't that many of. And you have now taken off the market, and if you are in a situation where you're in a deal with somebody who you can't negotiate or work out the deal with, and you end up out of escrow, you're back on the market again and you're looking for new buyers.
So you say what you should do is a pre-listing inspection of the home to find out, as a seller, to find out what the issues are.
Exactly. The safest thing to do is to do a property inspection so that the seller understands what they got as a property. Let's say, for example, you do a property inspection as a seller, you own a property, and you say you get an inspection. That inspection turns up a deteriorated roof. Well, it's better to disclose that right up front to any prospective buyer that there is a problem with the roof. And you should know that when you make your offer so that when we get into escrow, we're not going to renegotiate the problem that you're going to find that the roof is deteriorating.
Right, because they're
going to
take money off of the price.
Exactly.
Or the deal can fall apart.
Exactly. So this way, if you disclose it right up front, you tell them to make their offer based on that information, unless this new property inspector who will come along, because you want your buyer to get their own property inspector. When he comes along and says there's a problem with the roof, the seller can just say, I told you about the roof, we're not going to renegotiate that.
Well, I always think it's interesting that people tend to fix up their houses before they sell them. But I was thinking, why didn't they do that when they were living there? But you still recommend, though, that there are some things people should do to get their homes ready for sale?
Well, of course. I mean, it's always best to take care of property as you go along, because you're going to pay either a little bit along the way, or you can pay all at once at the end to get things ready to sell.
Right. Because they'll paint the house and redecorate everything, and
You mean at the very end?
Yeah.
You get everything all ready to go, and then it looks great, but then why am I leaving? It looks terrific. So you might as well enjoy it while you've got it and take care of it along the way. Get things serviced, maintain the paint, and whatever other things that wear out as you go along. So it's better to do that.
But I've heard anecdotally, I don't know if there have been studies too, though, it makes a big difference with the sale price. As you usually said, not only because people want money off, but even something simple like painting the house. Mm-hmm. I think the real estate agent told me once you can get something like $10,000 more for the house, by painting it, versus just saying, okay, well, the house needs a coat of paint, just take it off the price. But psychologically, that does something, and people more than take the cost. If they don't just say, oh, it's $1,000 to paint the house, they'll take $10,000 off the price, or that kind of a thing.
And it's not just the price either, by the way. It also is whether or not a person driving by that property is even going to be attracted to come into it. Mm-hmm. Because they see a rundown piece of property that needs paint, they're already getting the idea that this property has not been very well maintained. If you maintain the property, if you paint it, make it look really nice, it's going to attract more buyers, more people who will at least be interested in looking at this property, and it will show better, and it's very likely it will get you a lot more money than you pay for the paint.
So what are the common things that come up during home inspections that you see when your company's out? You do more of these than anybody. What are the common things that
Well, the number one problem we see is drainage. Drainage issues are the biggest problem. So People have problems with foundations, cracks in plaster, and settlement, floors that are uneven. This is all related to poor drainage. And unfortunately, in Southern California, it doesn't rain that much, so people don't think about...
Yeah, that's why when you said drainage, I thought, oh, we don't have any water out here.
Exactly, we don't think about drainage, but it rains enough in California to cause problems with the foundation or any area where there's trying to support something like a retaining wall or something like that. Where when you have occasional rains, but heavy rains, it does soften that foundation system area, and it does allow it to settle and sink and then crack and deteriorate.
And if there are problems during escrow, what are the kinds of things that usually cause problems? I mean, you mentioned the roof. I mean, is that also something that comes up a lot, or is it just all over the place?
Well, roofs, it's not all over the place. Roofs are a common one because roofs are always exposed to the weather, so they're always wearing out. Whether or not you use them or not, they're being affected by the sun, by the heat, by the cool, by the rain. A heating system, if you don't use it, will never wear out. So you can have a heating system that's 30 years old. If you don't use your gas and you don't use your heat, it'll be like brand new. So you don't have that same option with a roof, for example. Foundations as well should last the life of a home, if not, through several buyers or owners. So it really shouldn't be something that should deteriorate or crack. If you don't take care of the drainage, then you can have those kinds of issues. But the most common thing we find actually are plumbing problems with regards to, in the middle of negotiations, people tend to have issues with drain lines, sewer lines, water lines.
So they get ticked off about the plumbing and the...
Yeah, well,
it falls apart.
We have a lot of different kinds of plumbing systems in this city. A lot of older iron water lines that deteriorate and rust, and that's a problem for a lot of homes. And so people will change some of the pipes. They will change all the pipes to new copper, and that becomes a bit of an issue sometimes.
Well, in our final minute, you have some suggestions for people, for ways to get their property ready. What would you advise?
Well, if you're going to have a showing, you want to make sure that the property is basically ready to be seen. It should be clean. It should be bright. Open the curtains, eliminate as many of the odors as you possibly can. Get rid of the dogs. If you can, take them for a walk during that couple of hours while you're...
But everybody loves pets here.
Yeah.
But not good for someone.
But you don't want other people's pets. We don't want to walk into the house and see their dog. You want to see a picture of your dog in that particular house. So it's best to get rid of the animals. And one of the best suggestions I would do is have cookies in the oven baking. It just makes a house feel so much more homey. And people get that wonderful, aroma as they come in the front door, and I think it's a great selling tool.
Oh, it works for me. You make some cookies for me.
Yeah, no problem.
We work for the home inspection. Well, thank you very much, John LaRocca Home Inspections. Also like to thank Katie Norris and Melissa Basilar. Thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you next time.